Lucas thought he could handle the pressure, but this time it's personal and it could cost him everything. On General Hospital, a chilling threat lands directly in Lucas's path, forcing him into a corner where every decision could destroy a life or save one. As tensions rise and the clock ticks down, Lucas finds himself caught between fear and duty, and someone is making sure he feels every second of it. The question is, who's behind the threat, and what do they really want? Because the deeper Lucas gets pulled in, the more dangerous the game becomes. And in Port Charles, pressure like this doesn't just break people. It exposes secrets that were never meant to surface. General Hospital spoilers. Lucas under pressure. After a threat on May 4th, in Port Charles, pressure isn't just a feeling, it's a force. It builds quietly, coils around its target, and tightens until something gives. On May 4th, that force locks onto Lucas, turning his world into a high-stakes emotional and psychological battlefield. What begins as a threat quickly escalates into a defining moment, one that tests not only Lucas's resilience, but also his sense of identity, loyalty, and moral clarity. This isn't just another tense day at the hospital. This is a breaking point. A threat that cuts deeper than expected threats are nothing new in Port Charles, but this one lands differently. It's not loud or theatrical, it's precise, calculated, personal. Lucas doesn't just hear it, he feels it. What makes this moment so effective is its ambiguity. The threat doesn't arrive with clear instructions or obvious motives. Instead, it lingers in the air, forcing Lucas to interpret its meaning, its intent, and its potential consequences. Is it a warning, a manipulation tactic, or the opening move in something far more dangerous? That uncertainty is what destabilizes him, because when you don't know what you're up against, every decision becomes a risk. Lucas at a crossroads. Lucas has always been a character defined by compassion and integrity. As a doctor, he's sworn to protect life. As a person, he strives to do what's right, even when it's difficult. But the threat he faces on May 4th challenges those principles in ways he hasn't experienced before. This isn't a situation where there's a clear right or wrong. Every option carries consequences. Every path demands a sacrifice. If he ignores the threat, he risks escalation. If he complies, he may compromise his values. If he speaks out, he could put others in danger. This is the kind of dilemma that doesn't just test a character, it reshapes them. The psychological toll. What unfolds throughout the day is less about external action and more about internal conflict. Lucas begins to spiral, not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in a quiet, consuming one. He replays the threat in his mind. He questions his instincts. He second-guesses every interaction. Even routine moments at the hospital become charged with tension. A conversation feels off, a glance feels loaded, a silence feels suspicious. This is where the storytelling becomes particularly compelling. The danger isn't always visible, but it's always present. And that constant pressure starts to erode Lucas's sense of control. The hospital as a pressure cooker. The setting amplifies everything. Hospitals are places of urgency, responsibility, and emotional intensity. Lives are constantly on the line. Decisions must be made quickly and with precision. For Lucas, this environment becomes a pressure cooker. He's expected to perform at his best, focused, calm, decisive, while internally he's unraveling. Every patient becomes a reminder of what's at stake. Every colleague becomes a potential witness to his struggle. And the question looms, how long can he keep it together? And a secret he can't share. One of the most isolating aspects of Lucas's situation is his inability or unwillingness to confide in others. The threat creates a barrier, a wall between him and the people who might be able to help. Why doesn't he speak up? Because he doesn't know who to trust. Because he fears the consequences. Because saying it out loud might make it more real. This silence becomes its own form of pressure. It isolates him. It intensifies his fear. It forces him to carry the burden alone. And in a place like Port Charles, where secrets have a way of surfacing, that isolation can be dangerous. The moral dilemma. At the heart of this storyline is a moral question. What do you do when doing the right thing could hurt someone? Lucas is caught between competing responsibilities: his duty as a doctor, his loyalty to those he cares about, his instinct for self-preservation. There's no easy answer. What makes this dilemma so powerful is that it doesn't offer a clear resolution. Instead, it forces Lucas and the audience to sit with the discomfort, to consider the gray areas, to question assumptions, to recognize that sometimes the right choice isn't obvious, subtle clues and rising suspicion. As the day progresses, small details begin to stand out. A conversation that feels too pointed, a presence that lingers too long, a coincidence that doesn't quite make sense. These moments build tension without relying on overt action. They create a sense that something larger is unfolding just beneath the surface. Lucas starts to connect dots, but the picture that emerges is incomplete. And that incompleteness is what makes it so unsettling. Because he's not just dealing with a threat, he's dealing with the unknown. The fear of consequences. Fear is a powerful motivator, and in Lucas's case, it becomes a driving force. He's not just afraid for himself, he's afraid for his patients, his colleagues, his loved ones. The threat implies that others could be affected, that his choices might have ripple effects far beyond his control. This expands the scope of the storyline. It's no longer about one person under pressure, it's about the potential impact on an entire community. And that raises the stakes significantly. A moment of decision. At some point, Lucas realizes that inaction is no longer an option. He has to make a choice. Does he confront the threat head-on? Does he try to outmaneuver it? Does he seek help, even if it means risking exposure? This moment of decision is crucial. It's where character meets circumstance, where fear collides with courage, and where Lucas begins to define who he is under pressure. The role of trust becomes a central theme. Who can Lucas rely on? Who has his best interests at heart? And who might be hiding something? In Port Charles, trust is rarely straightforward. Alliances shift, motives blur, and even the most well-intentioned characters can make questionable choices. Lucas's hesitation to trust isn't just paranoia, it's survival instinct. But that instinct comes at a cost, because without trust, he's alone. The ripple effect. Even though the threat is directed at Lucas, its effects begin to ripple outward. Others notice the change in him. He's distracted. He's tense. He's not himself. These shifts raise questions, concern, suspicion, and as more people start to notice, the pressure increases. Because now Lucas isn't just managing a threat, he's managing perceptions, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy while everything inside him feels anything but normal. A story about control. At its core, this storyline is about control, or the lack of it. Lucas is used to being in control. As a doctor, he makes decisions that save lives. He operates with precision, confidence, and clarity. But the threat strips that control away. It puts him in a reactive position, forces him to adapt, to question, to navigate uncertainty. And that loss of control is what makes the situation so destabilizing. The possibility of fallout. As the day comes to a close, one thing becomes clear. This isn't over. The threat may have been delivered on May 4th, but its impact will extend far beyond that. There are consequences coming. Emotional fallout. Relationship strain. Potential exposure of secrets. And depending on how Lucas handles the situation, those consequences could be severe. Why this storyline matters. This isn't just about suspense, it's about character. Lucas's experience on May 4th serves as a lens through which we explore deeper themes. The burden of responsibility, the complexity of moral choices, the psychological impact of fear, the importance and risk of trust. It's a story that resonates because it feels real, not in its specifics, but in its emotions.